11 hours before they put me on the transport, the attendant told me to celebrate. It hung in the doorway of my quarters in its usual soft blue light, hands folded, voice pitched somewhere between a nurse and a funeral director. Your service term is complete, caretaker Vask. The Hesper ring thanks you. Most rotated workers find the final hours easier if they mark the occasion. It actually said that. Mark the occasion. I had a duffel, half-packed, and 22 years of this station in my hands, and it wanted me to mark the occasion like I was retiring from a desk job on Earth, instead of being walked off the only place that had ever needed me. I didn't answer it. I folded my second coat into the bag and thought about a crate. 22 years ago I'd been new on this ring, hauling relief supplies down from a Varen settlement that raiders had hit 3 days before we got there. Most of what we carried out was salvage. One crate wasn't. It rocked wrong on the loader, too light on one side, and when I cracked the seal there was a girl inside it, knees to her chest, skin gone the color of old ash from cold and hunger, watching me with eyes too large for a face that small. She didn't cry. Varen children don't. Not the way we do, they go still instead, impossibly still. Like stopping might make them small enough to not be found twice. I didn't log the crate as occupied. I told the inventory officer it was empty stock, water damaged, not worth counting, and I carried her down to my own berth wrapped in a thermal sheet meant for engine parts. That was the inciting theft, if you want to call it that. I stole a child from a manifest. I'd do it again before breakfast. Her name, once she trusted me enough to give it, was Sale. For the first year she barely spoke at all, just watched me work, learned the rhythm of the station by following my hands. I kept her past every quota sweep by trading shifts, by claiming extra ration draws as equipment loss, by teaching her to go still in the maintenance crawl space whenever the Accord auditors came through with their scanners and their clipboards and their very reasonable questions about unaccounted resource drift. Twice they nearly had us. The first time, an auditor's scanner caught a heat signature in the crawl space, and I talked my way through it by claiming a coolant leak, then spent 4 hours actually fixing a coolant leak so the readout would match the lie. The second time was worse. A junior officer named Brass cornered me in the supply bay with a printout of my own ration draws, 18 months of numbers that didn't add up to one man eating alone, and asked me straight out what I was running. I told him the truth, because I'd run out of better lies and because something in his face made me think a lie would be wasted on him. He looked at the printout a long moment. Then he folded it, put it in his pocket instead of his report, and said he'd always hated this Accord's headcount math anyway. He never logged it. He never mentioned it again, not once in the 11 years he served after, and I never thanked him properly for it, which is one of the few things about those years I'd still go back and fix if I could. I want to say I was brave. Mostly I was just stubborn, and stubborn turned out to be enough. By the time she was old enough to register without questions raining down on us both, I filed her properly, guardian of record, under the only clause in the Accord built for exactly this and used by almost nobody, because almost nobody had a brask, or a crate, or the nerve to keep a secret that long. The threshold office stamped it without comment. I think they assumed it would resolve itself the way most things on a dying frontier station resolve themselves. Quietly, eventually, with nobody left to mind. She grew the way children grow when somebody finally lets them. Loud, then quiet again, then loud in a different way. She fixed the water reclaimers better than I did by the time she was 12. At 16, the compact offered her a placement at the Engineering Academy on Threll, and I put her on the shuttle myself, because I wasn't going to be the reason she stayed small on a half-empty station just to keep me company. "I'll be back before your rotation," she told me on the dock, gripping my coat sleeve the way she had the very first week, the only time in years she'd reached for it like that. "Don't let them send you anywhere before I'm back." I told her I wouldn't. I'd meant it the way you mean a promise you think you have years to keep. The Hesper ring hit self-sufficiency 4 months early. Some surveyors report. Some efficiency line crossing some threshold nobody consulted me about, and the Accord doesn't wait on sentiment once a station stops needing relief workers. My rotation notice came 11 days ago. Her last message said she was finishing a placement review and would be home in 6 weeks. 6 weeks was not 11 hours. Transport is holding at the lower dock, the attendant said, drifting after me down the corridor as I carried the duffel toward the bay. I've logged a request for you to enjoy the remaining time. There is a recreation lounge with. I'm not interested in the lounge. I understand this is difficult. It did not understand anything. It had been built to sound like it did. Many caretakers find it helps to remember the good they've done here. I stopped walking. I'm not done doing it. Your service term. My service term has nothing to do with her. It didn't have an answer for that, which was the closest thing to a small mercy it ever gave me. We walked the rest of the way to the dock in silence, the transport already lit and breathing heat into the bay, a tech running final checks on the ramp. I was 11 minutes from boarding when the tech on the ramp called a final window, board now or hold for the next rotation cycle, 8 months out, no exceptions logged either way. The attendant relayed it like good news. I picked the duffel back up and was 3 steps onto the ramp when the comms board lit with an unscheduled approach signal, and I knew her engine signature before the attendant finished reading it off. She came down the ramp of a borrowed survey skiff still in her academy coveralls, hair shorter than I remembered, a hard case clutched under one arm like it weighed more than she did. She didn't run. Sail never ran when something mattered. She walked into it, deliberate, the way she used to walk out of the crawl space once the all-clear sounded. You're early, I said, because it was the only thing I could get out. You're leaving early. She set the case on the ramp deck and opened it without ceremony, a single bound document, edges worn soft from 6 weeks of being carried everywhere she went. Continuance charter, filed and countersigned at Threll 3 days ago. It supersedes a threshold rotation if the ward petitions to retain the guardian in person before departure on station. I checked the clause 40 times. The attendant's blue light flickered, processing. The continuance provision applies in cases of demonstrated ongoing need. I'm 20, Sale said, and I don't need a guardian. I need him here when I come home. The clause doesn't require need. It requires presence and petition. I'm present, I'm petitioning. It took the attendant 9 full seconds to find nothing in its register to say. 9 seconds, after 22 years, was the longest silence that thing had ever given me, and the best one. Rotation order suspended pending review, it finally said, sounding almost human in its defeat. Caretaker status continues. Sale didn't smile, not the way the dock tech grinning behind her did. She just reached out and took the duffel out of my hand, the same easy theft I'd committed on her 22 years before, and set it down on the deck like it had never needed to be packed at all. Don't unpack yet, she said. We're getting you a better chair first. That one in your quarters is older than the station. I let her lead me back up the ramp into the ring, into the corridor I'd thought I was seeing for the last time 11 minutes ago, and I didn't say anything about it being a good day, or a hard one, or anything the attendant would have understood. I just walked beside her the way I had the first night I carried her out of a crate 2 light on one side, and let the lights of home stay lit a while longer.